Thank you, Faith. Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? All right, brilliant. I'm very, very happy to be here with you. It was really a joy to hear about this online Sangha and how big and flourishing it is. And it is very inspiring. So thank you for coming. I'm Yahel. I'm speaking from Tel Aviv. I will be speaking about trust. And I do want to let you know that when I agreed or was actually very happy to receive the invitation to teach here, I was fantasizing, like I usually am, about how bright, I'll be and how good it will go. And then a couple of days ago, I got COVID, and which is out of fashion now, but it's still going on, apparently. And I just want to let you know that, so if you perceive that I'm a little slow or that I find it hard to think, or that I'm starting to sweat or cough, yeah, it's COVID. So that's how it is. And actually, I found it quite interesting with regards to the theme of trust, because in a way, it changed my powers, it changed my balance of things and balance of capabilities, and some things I couldn't do as well as I can't do as well as I'm used to do. And actually it called me to lean on the quality of trust in a slightly different way than usual, and revealed a few more things, which I actually really appreciated, because it happens, we get sick, we get ill, we get weak, and unexpected things happen, and working with that and handling that is really part of our responsibility and opportunity, I guess, in this journey of life. So anyway, I'm very happy to be here with you. I'll switch to gallery view because it's nice to have your faces here instead of mine. Can I do that? Oh, here it is. Yes, brilliant. And please, if you feel comfortable being with cameras on, please do so. It's just so lovely to see each other. Of course, if you prefer cameras off, that's completely fine. But there is something in contributing your presence in this full way. It makes a real difference, to really see and feel you. Although, of course, again, we can really feel you when your camera is off as well. Brilliant, great. And it's wonderful to see you. And I know some of you. It's lovely to see those of you that I know, and it's lovely to meet some of you for the first time. Thanks for coming, and thanks for contributing your presence in holding this space together. So we'll start with 30 minutes of meditation, and the invitation will be to make it quite simple. I will guide the meditation. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, so you can choose if you want to follow my instructions or take a different road, all right? And please let the question, what is most supportive and bring most of a sense of resource, guide you in your choices in this meditation. So if I'm suggesting something and it sounds like that's going to be a challenge, but you have a sense, I can do something else that can actually be a resource and can be joyful and can allow my heart and mind to settle, please follow your intuition with that, or do your own experiment. In the way I will lead us, I will first invite you to find a posture that feels good for your body, and then invite to scan the body, radiate a little bit of goodwill or metta. And then find a center for your attention and expand the awareness to the whole body. After a while, I'll invite you to tend to a loving approach, welcoming approach towards the whole range of experiences of body. And then later, even tune in even more into the gesture of allowing, the gesture of welcoming towards the whole range of experience. So that's the thread, that's the trajectory of this meditation. And you're very welcome to follow. So please find a posture that supports your body. Of course, you can practice standing, walking, lying down if you feel that this is what your body needs. And of course, in the sitting posture. Please check if there is anything that will be helpful for you. Lights on or off, more cushions or a chair. And then settling in to the posture. You can make yourself sensitive to the lower part of the body. And let yourself lean on the earth. Really give your weight as if trusting the earth to carry you. You can check if your sitting bones are leaning equally. And if not, maybe relax that area. And then the upper part of the body can grow naturally upwards. So the body is upright and alive. Perhaps you can feel that the body loves this uprightness. The contact with the air, the pull towards the sky. And perhaps you can trust this enjoyment of the body. So you don't need to force it to be upright. And then please take the time to scan the body and relax all the muscles that don't really need to work. You can do it sporadically or systematically from top to bottom. Sensing and relaxing. You can go through the whole body, but please do not miss the face and the lower belly. After we've settled into a posture with the body, we can settle into a meditative posture with the heart, tuning into and radiating goodwill, kindness towards yourselves and others. There is a lot of kindness just in the act of sitting. And meditating. Sometimes we just need to tune into this kindness, a loving intention towards ourselves and others. And let our hearts trust it. And then you can find a center for your attention. It could be with a sense of metta, maybe radiating from the heart. Could be with the breath or in any other center in the body. And from that center of sensitivity, make yourself sensitive to the whole body. Aware, mindful, to the whole body. The awareness can be even slightly broader than the boundaries of the physical body. So the body is surrounded by and suffused with awareness and sensitivity. See if you can make the sensitivity sensitive to the different textures and vibrations in the field of the body, including all of them, the unpleasant and the pleasant, the obvious ones and the subtle ones. And whenever the awareness shrinks, please expand it. Whenever the sensitivity collapses, you can broaden it again. Perhaps making yourself especially sensitive to parts of the field of the body that feels okay. It feels relatively nice or relatively pleasant, allowing them to be a resource for you. At this point, if you wish, you can emphasize the quality of kindness, friendship, or compassion in your attention. The sensitivity to the whole body is anyway caring and compassionate. If you wish, you can lean into it a bit more. Making every gesture of attention a gesture of compassion. An aspect of compassionate attention is to be very welcoming and receptive. So if you wish, you can make your attention very receptive, welcoming everything in the range of experience. Any experience that's inner and outer. So you can include sounds, for example, as well. And from here, you can invite your compassionate approach to spread out to all beings. Wish them well, in whatever way works for you. May all beings be well. May they be happy and free from suffering. So before I start, first I'll thank you for your practice. It was good sitting with you. Actually, it's good to sit in Sangha. It's really good. I really appreciate your presence and really thank you for being here. And just a technical thing before I start speaking is that I don't know if Faith mentioned it, but I'm being spotlighted. But if you prefer seeing everyone in gallery view, you can change the view setting so you get to see everyone. So you're welcome to do that if you prefer. So I'll be speaking for a while on the theme of trust. And I'll start, and that's actually an advice coming from a teacher that I was very influenced by, and my teacher, or Robert Bea, called him one of his teachers as well. And his recommendation is to start Dharma teaching by speaking or mentioning the idea of karma. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because the idea of karma is really fundamental for the understanding of how the heart works, how the mind works, from a Dharma perspective. And everything basically relies on that. So karma, to try to put it simply and shortly, is the sense or the idea that the heart and mind are doing actions all the time. They are creating all the time. And they're not just creating thoughts or things that we would usually assume are created by the mind, but rather our hearts and minds are creating our moment-to-moment experience. What we are, and each of us obviously is experiencing a different thing, but what I am and what you are experiencing at the moment is, to an unmeasurable extent, let's say, a fruit of the activities of your heart and mind now, and the activities of your heart and mind in the past. And this is actually good news, or at least potentially it's good news. Or maybe these are news that can be either good or bad, because partly what they mean, partly what they point to, is that the range of, or the flexibility, or the range of what we experience and how we can experience the world is vast. It's just enormous. And you can contemplate about the range of human experience. It's enormous. It's like the beauty that can be seen, that can be explored, the depth of wisdom, the subtlety, the intelligence. It's truly remarkable, truly, truly remarkable what people can do and see and attend to and gesture and give. It's truly remarkable. And how difficult things can be, how difficult things can be, you know, how terrible the mind can be sometimes, the heart can be sometimes. Definitely on the collective level, that's easy to see. We get to see it every day on the news. And I hope your news is better than ours, but but here it's obviously you know, challenging. But also on the individual level, and we can see it around us, and maybe we can see it for ourselves, like how difficult things can be, how amazingly difficult sometimes, how much trouble and problem the human heart can create, you know. So we have that range as human beings, and one of the really incredible gifts of the Buddha Dharma is to point to the way of looking. I'll say, I won't say the word fact, I'll say the words way of looking, that points that we have capacity and capability, and maybe even a responsibility towards the particular actions that our heart and minds are doing, and that we can know which actions, we can know from our own experience, from our own intelligence, from our own sensing, which kinds of actions will lead to harm to ourselves and others, and which kind of actions will decrease suffering and will bring joy. And the Buddha even points to, you know, ultimate freedom for ourselves and for others. And all this is dependent on the activities, on the actions of the heart and mind, and we can influence them. We can learn to work in that field and influence that field and create beauty in this field. And in a way, trust in the Dharma or I don't mean trusting the Dharma. I mean the idea or the notion of what trust is in the field of Dharma is primarily, and maybe most importantly, trust in that. Trust in that. Trust that actions really matter, the actions, the activities of hearts and minds. And I don't only mean physical actions, I don't only mean actions by speech, I mean internal actions as well, that they are happening all the time, that they really matter, that they create our worlds of experience, that we can influence them, and that we can learn to influence them in more and more skillful ways. That's perhaps the most important kind of trust in the Dharma. If we really trust that, and when I say really trust that, I mean with our choices, with our behaviors, right? I don't just mean theoretically. That calls for Dharma, that will make us turn towards and give ourselves more and more fully to the Dharma practice. And in that sense, you can call yourself Buddhist or not, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter in this way. We are always trusting something. We cannot not trust something. And trust does not express itself in huge declarations or, not even necessarily in intellectual thinking. But it shows itself through the answer to the question, what are we investing in? What are we investing in moment to moment? And just before this talk, I went for a walk outside center of Tel Aviv. It's not necessarily an easy experience to go for a walk. I remember taking walks before talks in Gaia House and other places, and walk in nature and silent, and you get to reflect. And here you get out and it's like really noisy, plenty of people doing all sorts of stuff. Very intense. And I was thinking, probably if I would go out on the street and ask people, what do they trust really? No one would say, I trust food and TV. But if you look around at what the choices actually are, in a way, the question, what you trust, the answer to that question is usually less close to the answer that you would give if you would think about that, and it's closer to the answer to the question, what are you doing this evening? This is what you trust. What are you paying attention to? What are you investing in? And the whole kind of direction and calling of Dharma is make the investment in things, please make the investment in things that's worth your investment, that can really give you something good back. And it's quite remarkable to see how much the heart and mind can invest themselves in things just out of habit and put their trust in things that cannot really deliver back. You may have noticed I had a slip in the beginning. I had like a Freudian slip in the beginning of this meeting. And I said, maybe I'm just inventing a Freudian slip for the sake of the example. But I think I've said that when Sangha Live invited me, I had the thought, I'll be great. While if I would sit and contemplate, and what's the reason for me doing this? Of course, out of generosity, and I love the Dharma, etc. But there is a part of my heart, and you could hear it in the slip, that's invested in the question, will I look good? Will I? And part of me trusts that. Part of me puts its trust. My heart puts its trust or invest, it's make an investment in the question, like, do people think good things about me? Now, that's a very unsatisfying investment portfolio. That's not a solid stock to invest in. It's really, really not. However, my mind goes there. These things are addictive. And I think a lot of this question of trust is around the question, what's really worth trusting? Are you in your life putting your trust on what's really, really worth your trust, on what's really can give you good return on investment, basically? Because we're always leaning into something. We're always hoping for something. When it's not just with major actions, it's with tiny things. Where do I put my attention right now? Another sort of sub-theme, or not sub-theme, but another part of the theme of trust with regards to the Dharma, and this is something the Buddha mentions quite a lot. The Buddha often recommends trusting in the Buddha. And there are many ways to read that. There are many ways to think about what that means. One theory that I have, and I think it's quite useful, is having trust in the possibility of awakening, having trust in the possibility of awakening, and in the possibility of the human heart and mind. And if you want another variation, in the possibility of your heart and mind, try that, to go there. I think that's worthwhile. And the reason is, it's like the gravitation of what the heart is habitually putting trust in is so strong. What the heart is habitually invested in is so strong that in a way the Buddha comes and he recommends an alternative gravitational field. The invitation is to let yourself live in a world in which, yes, there is gravitation for this usual sense of things. I'm here, you're there, this is happening now, tomorrow is tomorrow, etc. But there is like a gravitation also towards awakening, whatever that means to you at the moment. And the Buddha does mean, I think, quite specific things. I think he points to a sense of something, or the possibility of meeting something that's beyond life and death. He's pretty explicit about that. That's beyond all suffering, that's beyond all usual perceptions. And there is an invitation to actually trust that and let that be a gravitational force and a magnetic force and a pull towards the heart. For some people, that will be very important. For some people, really not at all. And that's fine. That's completely fine. The Buddha himself, he has a simile in which he says, if a chicken sits on her eggs and she sits on them well for long enough and warms them, etc., the chicks, this is how you say chicks, the tiny baby chicks, the chicks will come out of the egg. If the actions are pointing in the direction of liberation, liberation will come. And he says, even if the chicken doesn't want her chicks to be born, she's like, no, stay there, please, don't want you born. They will still be born. If you do the right actions, liberation is inevitable, right? But there is also sometimes the recommendation to, have that sense. Awakening is there, this possibility is there. Have that as a gravitational force. For some people, it will be very important. For me, it was very important. I remember seeing my first and second teacher, and I have an image of them right now, actually, just sitting there meditating. And there is something in the or there was something in the purity and uprightness and the sense that they are radiating something and calling me for something that I felt was fundamentally important for me. And it's not about them. It's not like they were perfect beings. I think they weren't, actually. I think they aren't. But they pointed to something that I sensed as perfect, and I was very much attracted to. So there is this aspect of trust in the Dharma as well. God, there is so much I want to say. God. Just layers, levels of trust, perspectives on trust in the Dharma. When I asked myself, actually, how my trust in the Dharma grew, how it grew over the years, what made it grow, the answer was actually meditative skills, really meditative skills. And particularly, I thought about two lines of meditative skills. One, that I don't know if it's very emphasized in the teachings, or in some teachings it's very emphasized, in some teachings it doesn't, but I would really emphasize it. Leaning on resources, finding your own resources in your hearts, in your minds, learning to nourish them, learning to lean into them, to enjoy them. This is a huge thing. It's a huge thing, being able to live. And the resource can be simple. You don't need to be really sophisticated with it. You just need to find some things that work for you and really nourish them, really nourish them, and really invest time and energy cultivating metta, cultivating compassion, cultivating a sense of connection with resource in the body. The ability to tune into the sense of pleasure in the body. You may remember the scene that the Buddha described of him sitting under the rose apple tree when he was a kid. He remembered into that scene as part of his explorations. So remembering back into this scene and remembering there was pleasure, there was joy that wasn't dependent on anyone, and that was wholesome, that led to a good place. This is very important on the path. Trust, in the sense of kind of what we're trusting immediately, what we're trusting from day to day, from hour to hour, trust need to be invested in a way that nourishes us back. It's not very satisfying, or at least it wasn't very satisfying for me, to have trust in awakening somewhere, but suffer now and not having any or not much access to resources. And there is so much that is offered in the Dharma and so much that can be explored through meditation. The resource of expanding and broadening your attention. You can do it now. It doesn't take much. The resource of looking at each other and radiating metta, radiating goodwill. Perhaps for some, the resource of actually inviting a loving figure, a bodhisattva figure, and sitting with them, having them sitting with you, having a bodhisattva looking through your eyes, gesturing towards you with love. It doesn't take so much. It's not very hard to do, and it's so worth it. It can be really just sensing the earth, And it can be so easy to give so much importance to suffering and how difficult things are and my story and all that. And all that is really important. And I will speak about that very shortly or in a very short time. However, the capacity to really trust these resources is incredibly important. And these resources, they're not just a pleasant physical sensation that you can occasionally enjoy. Because if they're cultivated, they are also, how can I say, they have intelligence in them. You know, if you'll make an experiment and for a day, try to be consistent with the resource of pleasurable breath, or with the resource of metta, or with the resource of a bodhisattva walking with you, you know, and try to be consistent with that. See what happens when you make unskillful actions with speech. You know? They will respond. They will close down, they will collapse, they will dissolve, they will, you know, they will respond. There is intelligence in them, and that gives you some feedback loops. You know, it's a feedback loop that can indicate, are you going in a direction that's helpful for you? So trust in resources. I'll speak, and I could have spoke about that for such a long time, but I'll be very short about trust. Maybe I'll drop that. I won't speak about that. I wanted to speak about the trust in the creative intelligence in the face of difficulties. You know? And this is really something that we can learn through our practice. And it's a matter of wise mindfulness, basically, over the years, you know, developing wise capacity to respond in the inner world, you know, and growing slowly, like I sometimes call it like a bodhisattva function inside. You know? A voice, a hand that can respond, that know how to be with you when things are going bad, when things are difficult, when things are challenging. You know? And through your skills, through your practice, through your generosity and giving such gestures to others, you can really develop that and learn to trust that. And that makes a huge difference in life, because something in you knows that in the face of difficulty, there is an intelligence there that you know personally, you know, that you can rely on to create new beauty, you know, new power, new intelligence out of the meeting with this difficulty. And living with that trust makes a huge difference in one's life. You know, sometimes in practice, Lila was here, I think, like a month ago or something. Lila Kimchi, was she? You don't remember, maybe. So she came as a teacher, Faith remembers. All right. Lila was here. I remember a retreat. I was a meditator here in Tovana, in the Insight Meditation, gorgeous Insight Meditation Center in Israel. And Lila was the teacher. And I came to an interview, came to a one-to-one, and I've shared my difficulties. Honestly, it was many years ago. It was before I started really enjoying meditation. And back then I just enjoyed it, but now I really enjoy it. And Lila, I don't remember her words, but she said something like, "Yahel, what about a little trust? You know, you don't seem to have too much of that," which is true. You know, it's not my leading sort of thing. And I really heard her, you know, because I trust Lila. And then for a couple of days, I just walked around and made an experiment. It was more than a couple of days, or like 4 or 5 days. Just made an experiment, suffusing my perception with trust. Just suffusing my perception with trust. Every gesture of perception, every act of seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting, suffused with trust, as if I wasn't even sure trust in what, you know? It was as if trust became, or I made it, the sort of way of looking or way of relating to any experience at all. It was fabulous. I highly recommend that you'll do it. Part of what it did, and many ways of looking to do that, part of what it did, it made the world much softer, lighter, brought a tremendous and beautiful sense of oneness to things. And at some point, it also invited the mystical sense, and just in brackets, I'll say that trust in mystical experiences is another very interesting theme for me. Brought the mystical sense that the world is responding somehow, you know, just as a mystical sense. No practical advice here, but more just wanting to invite that horizon as a possibility as well. And maybe I'll read the quote for you. It's from the Mahaparinibbana. Do you know what the Mahaparinibbana is? So the Mahaparinibbana is a sutta. It's the longest sutta in the Pali Canon. And it's the sutta in which that describes the death of the Buddha, the last day of his life. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful, you know. I haven't rehearsed this reading, but I'll do it anyway. So I'm terrible in reading quotes in English, just so you know, but I'll try it anyway. Then the Blessed One, meaning the Buddha, lie down on his right side in the lion's sleeping posture, with one foot on top of the other, mindful and alert. So basically, he's lying down, preparing to die. That's his last physical gestures before his great awakening or death. Now, at that time, the twin sal trees were in full bloom, even though it was not the time for flowering. They showered, strawed, and sprinkled on the Tathagata's body in homage to him. The Tathagata meaning the Buddha, the one that's gone beyond. Heavenly coral tree blossoms fell from the sky, showering, strewing, and sprinkling the Tathagata's body in homage to him. Heavenly sandalwood powder fell from the sky. Heavenly music was playing in the sky in homage to the Tathagata. Heavenly songs were sung in the sky in homage to the Tathagata. And this was the way, or part of the way, in which the world responded to the death of the Buddha. So that's basically the last thing I want to say, just sort of opening a door to something quite unique, I think, starting from a very simple point, just from the actions of the heart and mind. What's helpful? What's not helpful? You know? And following that and allowing the sense or the intuitive sense of the world to change in quite surprising ways, So thank you for listening. Let's take a few seconds in silence with this. Thank you. And as we move to the time for questions and responses and comments, just to mention again the theme of Dana, and mostly just to appreciate, you know, the fact that it seems that this Sangha is holding Sangha Live and holding the teachers for a while now, based on the gesture of generosity, which is quite amazing, I feel. And I'm feeling very thankful for Dharma organizations that allow this form of holding the Dharma to be kept alive. So thank you, Sangha Live, and thank the Sangha for that kind of support. And now really to open to any question, comment. It can be around this theme, it can be on something else, you know. You've encountered something in Robert Bear's talks and you wonder what that is, you know, you want to ask. Everything is very, very welcomed. And I'll basically would be delighted to hear you, you know? Hello, Grace.
Hi, Yahel.
Hello.
Yahel?
What? Say again?
Is it Yahel or Yahel?
However you say it, that's the way it is. Where are you speaking from?
I'm calling from San Francisco Bay Area, California, USA.
Nice. Welcome.
Thank you. I have a question regarding trust.
Yeah.
And and this is in relation to making wiser decisions. It's a workshop that I am thinking of offering later in the year. So how would you relate? I know you talked about trust in that, which I imagine it's trust in Dharma, right? Trust in the, I'm not a Buddhist, so I had to look at the definition in Google. Dharma is cosmic law regarded as universal truth by the Buddha. I said, okay, now I know what Dharma is.
I'm not sure if I would go with that definition exactly.
Really? So what would, then my question would be, when you say trust in Dharma, what do you mean by Dharma?
Well, that's a good question. So the answer will have to be contextualized. So okay. The word Dharma actually means a lot of things. One, it means just the kind of collection of teachings given by the Buddha. I don't mean that, but I not completely don't mean that. It also means the Dharma can also mean what is seen when the whole realm of perception is transcended. I don't mean that. Dharma it can mean the path or the wisdom, the wisdom of discerning actions that lead to suffering and actions that lead away to suffering, the effort to take the second kind of actions, and the wisdom and the potentials of understanding that come from that, you know. So that is basically to say the teachings of the Buddha, but not necessarily the whole
teaching.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that was a very good answer, but I'm not sure if I even got to your question or to your real question. I was just, you know.
No, because when you said, you know, learn how to trust, cultivate, I really heard you say cultivate and lean into the resources that you can tap into, so that you, in times of difficulty, you've cultivated that pool where you can find nurturing the good actions, or the loving, the kindness, the compassion, and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, my question was like, how does trust, when I say cultivate trust, that you can make the wise decisions that you need to do in your day-to-day life, what would be the resource of that trust?
Yeah, so I tend to, I'm not a very optimistic person, so I'm not sure if I can even do the best, like a wise choice in my life, in day-to-day life. But I think the practice of Dharma or the practice of meditation can lead to a point in which one has quite a good sense of what is more or less helpful from what is possible at the moment. So there is a range of possibilities at this moment that you have, that I have, and part of the discernment that grows through Dharma is to sensing what is the range that I have right now, and what's the more helpful thing that I can tend towards, right? And so I would say, trust your ability to cultivate that discernment and the importance of the effort in actually making or leaning into what's more helpful there, And of course, that's a very short answer to a very, very large and serious question.
Yeah, well, details will follow. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Yahel. Nice to meet you.
Where are you speaking from?
I'm calling from London in the UK. Not quite sure where to start. I guess I'm curious. I'm not quite sure about the jump in logic from trusting and the long sutta on the Buddha's death.
Yeah.
So it seems a bit of a jump to me. I mean, for me, there's, surely it's more the beginning is more perhaps could be more useful, i.e. the first sutta about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Because, I guess if you're looking at death, then it is Buddha perhaps looking back on all the good things that he did. But I think Buddha came from a lot of doubt, didn't he? A lot of doubt in his life, and I'm quite struggling a bit at the moment. So been coming on after Sangha life for and for many years now. And this weekend, I guess I've not heard everything's been so rosy and positive. And you said you might have had some doubt a few years ago. And whereas the first truth is there is noble truth is there is suffering. And I'm actually in a huge amount of doubt at the moment regarding a Buddhist practice. I will go and try and connect to one of my teachers this upcoming week. Because I guess there's two things, I guess. Let's try and get to the point. So there's a one thing about Buddhism is the path. Then, there's a lot, as a layperson, there's a lot of things that I enjoy that are around, say, pop music, theatre, popular culture, etc.
You live in
there's
London.
Something about, well, exactly. And I love living in London. A lot of people hate living in London. They say they get tired of London, but, it's for me, London is the city for me. I have been to the big cities in the world, and I've been to quiet places too. And Buddhism, but there's something about the teaching about craving and attachment and all that, and a lot of entertainment and culture does seem to cultivate that. Firstly, and I guess that secondly, how can one trust on the bad days? People that have, say, depression, anxiety, people that have, come from really difficult trauma, difficult childhoods, etc. When trust has been, when you have a parenting, which when I ask about Buddhism, culture, etc., told that is worthless, told that any conversation about what I'd like to have in my funeral or whatever, I get a parent that wants to disown me, even though I'm a man in my 50s. Having such a negative, distrust of the world, etc. Almost insanity. My mother would send me to Sunday school. I don't know if you have that in Israel, but Christian Sunday school from when I was little. And I come home and start speaking about Jesus and all that, and she'd say, "How dare you talk about Jesus? Jesus didn't help me." So she was using her mistrustfulness, sending her child to Sunday school to come back and be able to threaten to kill and disown and kick out on the street whatever any talk about Christianity. So it's quite difficult, this topic of trust, when I have got some trust with Buddhist teachers, but Buddhism in the West certainly seems to be very disconnected from trying to create any deep or meaningful relationships between teacher and student. This dharma system's good, but it's also in some ways creates distance between students and teachers. So yeah, those are, the Four Noble Truths.
Yeah.
The lack of trust and a lack of personal connection and doubt. If any reflections, welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, thank you. I think I can say where I would start, really. I would start with sort of not trying, really, and I don't know you that well, so I'm sort of gambling,
sure.
and I'm saying things that are proximate, so I may not really, be on point with you. Of course, I'm saying something a little bit too generic in a way, but I'll say like that. I wouldn't try to stretch the trust to the Buddha's teachings or to Buddhism in general or anything like that. If in doubt, I would just come to a very base level. And I think a very base level trust in the Dharma, and that's something that my teacher once said, is that at every moment, there is something that you can do to reduce suffering to some extent. At every moment, there is something that you can do to reduce suffering to some extent. And you just go with that. And you do whatever you can do in a moment, and you feel the feedback loop, the reward that comes from that. And then you do the same. And then you just do the same. And that's the Dharma. That's it. And it can go a long way. And of course, there was a jump between this and the Mahaparinibbana, and trying to do all that in 30 minutes that are actually 40 minutes, but should have been 30 minutes. Of course, that's ridiculous. But sometimes some people may discover that just following this thread, just following the thread of do whatever you can to reduce suffering in this moment and just don't stop. That can open up, that can go a very long way, if you really don't stop, if you really kind of, and you allow yourself to trust your experiences, that comes out of that. A lot can happen there.
Yeah, thank you. I guess the wisdom comes in what is suffering and not suffering. So, for example, I'm not an alcoholic, but people that are alcoholics think that to reduce suffering is to have a drink. So, so I guess there's bringing in that wisdom, and it's really interesting to hear your enthusiasm for meditation. And I really had that for many years, and I kind of like hit a wall with that. But I think there's something about trusting me, because my situation is different for every, there's 73 other people on this call and this session, etc. And I think there's something is good about my suffering, the suffering I'm going through, even though there's universal suffering. There is something about something particular to my circumstances, etc. But thank you, Yahel. I think the suggestion to how to reduce suffering skillfully in the moment, and taking little baby steps is, like a chick. Yeah, I thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing in this way. So I think we may have time for one more question or comments. Oh, so a question in the chat. Anna, do you want to read it, or do you want to I'll read it from the chat. And if you want to jump in and do it in your own voice, please do. I'm an optimistic person, which is why I have a deeper sense of trust. Recently, I realized that this trust has been immensely helpful in navigating through difficult times and overcoming trauma. Wow, it's good to hear. However, I also acknowledge that my trust may have occasionally led to spiritual bypassing. Yeah. Have you ever encountered a similar experience? Can you relate to this? Well, I wish I would be an optimistic person and could you know, that's like between the different modes of imperfection, I suffer from a different mode, which I think is slightly more imperfect, but maybe that's just my pessimistic view. I think, yeah, but I can relate to it, and I'll try to do it very shortly. Basically saying we're not perfect, and I think it's a good development on the spiritual path, if we want to call it this way, on the path of practice. It's a good development. It's a healthy development to occasionally, every few years, every few months, have a sense of, oh, I was missing something, you know? Oh, there was something that I'm not open to, not awakened to, some potential that I haven't really fulfilled. That's how it should be, because our hearts are imperfect, and the more they grow, the more we see, okay, there is this thing as well, and there is this thing as well, and that's a good thing, I think. Yeah, I think that would be what I would say about that. My teacher was often very encouraging of working with what is strong, actually working with what is strong, not looking for, and that's a different tactic. There is a tactic of looking for what's missing, looking for what's weak, looking for what needs to be strengthened. He would usually have the sense that that's what's lacking in their psyche is not awareness of what is lacking, but actually contact with their resources and with what can push them forward or take them forward. So he would encourage, go with what's strong and then work with the rest, you know, when you have more intelligence in practice coming from relying on what's on your strengths. So I don't know if that exactly touches on the question, but that was my intuition there.
Yeah, thank you, Yahel. Thank you very much for answering. I think it's maybe the fine line between optimism and really pause in between and listen then what really comes up, like what arises in your body and your heart, mind. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the one last thing I'll say is, like, you know, from the place of resource, there is sometimes also the need to be willing to meet suffering, you know, and it's important as well. So thank you, Anna, and thank all of you, actually, because we need to end now. Thank all of you. It was wonderful spending this evening with you. I feel much healthier. So thank you for your contributions to that. And I wish you a good week. See you sometime in the future. Be well.